Hi, Vinit. Can you hear?
Ah, great.
I want to let y'all know I'm here. It's Helen, but I'm driving to work.
Hi,
I'm
Helen.
listening.
So glad you could be
Hi,
there
Alan.
today.
Hello.
All right. Well, I imagine we'll have a few more people coming on. Why don't we at least review the agenda and
Sure.
just kind of generally get moving. I'm going to share.
Okay, I'm just waiting for Vinit to say hello and make sure he's hearing us.
Sure.
Hey
And
guys,
get started.
it's Vinay joining in.
Okay, hello, Vinit.
Hey, Vinit. Glad you could join us.
Hi
Vinit,
Vincent. Hi Steven.
You had a camera yesterday. Where's the camera now?
Yeah, right now I'm like not in the position to start the camera, so it will.
Okay, it's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just start. Vinit, first I want to introduce you to the team. We are a small group this morning. Sometimes it's a bigger meeting, but people should come in soon. Vinit is a developer from India. I think you're working for Thoughtful. Is that correct, Vinit?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're an independent consultant as well.
Yeah, you are correct.
So the reason why I'm bringing Vinit into the team is that he was one of the many volunteers in the list, and I knew he had a special expertise on turning Apex applications into mobile apps. So using our Cordova technology to turn that into Android and iOS, which has become a priority for the next release. So Vinit is here to help Stephen Cloet and I on that front.
Thank you, Vinit.
So Vinit, you'll have the chance to speak to more people. Again, it's a small group this morning, but we are over 20 volunteers on fabe.
And Vinit, would you want to take a moment or two to just share, what got you interested in fabe and what you want to accomplish?
Yeah, like back then on LinkedIn, I saw your post and I found it very attractive because right now the situation is like if we don't control right now, then like we people have to control it, right? And if we create a platform like this, like if we contribute by individual, then we don't know like how much we have contributed, right? But if this platform can provide a very huge thing, like people get to know like how much their contribution and how each people is contributing, like every person get to know like there are many people also contributing for to save the environment, right? So that idea I liked very much. So that is also engage more people to come in and save the planet, like because like there are many industries who is like just working for their money and all the things, like we individual have to do this thing, right? So I like that idea very I like this
Excellent.
idea. Yeah.
And also, Vinit, can you take 1 minute to speak about the climate in India regarding climate change? How do people view the crisis we're facing?
Yeah, right now I'm living in Delhi, and if you heard about it, there is a worse situation. Like the pollution is like too bad here, and because of all the industries here, and there are too many people is using like diesel and petrol cars, right? The gas cars. So the government is taking steps like introducing like the vehicles for like electric vehicles. So yeah, somehow people are and more people are like joining carpooling. So people are understanding the situation here. If we don't control right now, then it might be very bad for future generations.
So yes, climate change is becoming very real to people. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I can see it like last 3 years, the smog level is too much here in winters.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, people get now realizing that it's like very
All
out
right.
of the control.
And Vinit, one of the things that you might help us with too, besides on the technical side of things, as you look at the website and how we present ideas, to ask yourself, do these ideas and the way we talk about them work in an Indian context? Because obviously there are many different philosophies of life, different forms of education, et cetera, around the world, different cultures. And there's no question that what we've been coming up so far is very Western-centric, even to the extent of Northern Western. So for example, Clarissa, who's an Apex developer as well, just joined the team. She's going to work on Spanish translations. And what part of what she's going to do is think about how these messages work in Latin America. Do they work? How do they need to be different? And I'm sure the same will be true for India. So that's something else you might keep in mind. And if you know of folks who might even want to work on translating some of this content, some of our initial pieces, so that, and to see how it works, that would be great. So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, like India is following like most of the Western culture right now. Like, so yeah, most of the people here know English very well. Like, but some part of it, like, because India is a very big country and there are like more than 80 plus languages currently. Yeah. So.
But I don't, and it's not just language. It's not just a matter of translating it, but once it's translated, do the messages, the way we phrase things, the way we appeal to people's thinking, does it even hit on people's? I mean, obviously it meant something to you, so probably we're doing okay. Just something to keep in mind as we go forward.
Yeah,
Right.
I understood your point, right.
And I've said this in the past, but you know how fabe is really action centric, and we're proposing people to take actions, but some of those actions are really, they apply to, we had them through the lens of a North American culture. So if I live in Montreal, and something that is really popular here is to ride your bike to work. But I was talking to Stephen Cloet about this in South Africa. It's not something you do. It's dangerous and doesn't really apply to them. So we have to be aware of the locations of our members. All right, so let's move forward. I just wanted to touch base on Julebug. If anyone had any final thoughts, I personally stopped using it. So actually,
I'd like to make a quick suggestion. Let's move. So we've got the Julebug, and also we want to talk to folks about a new app, an initiative that we discovered this week, and talk about that. But I suggest that we move the logo and icon and the funding pitch things. In other words, our direct business. Let's do that first, and then let's move on to the broader conversations. Excellent. So let's go to a logo and icon. And Jen, if you don't mind, I'll go through. I've got the file set up, and I can just show people what we are planning on moving with. And so Jen has been working really hard and been very patient with, can you try this? Can you try this? Can you try that? And as maybe happens a lot, we tried and tried and tried, and in many ways circled back to the simplest, some of our simplest ideas. So at this point, Neviana and Vincent and I are all feeling really good about moving forward on our logo and icon. So let's take a look. So you saw this last week. Like I say, we've circled and we feel good about it. So the plan is for this to be our logo with the lines.
I don't see anything.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen?
I see it.
Oh, okay. It's my bad. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. So this color scheme, our tagline of reduce, rescue, reconnect, keep the lines. I think people generally felt like they like the visual balance of them. And then we'd also have a version of it that doesn't include the taglines when we just wanted the letters. And then on the icon side of things, let's see, how did I get there? On the icon side of things. All right, I couldn't easily find an icon that was just the bird in hand, so I'll just go down here. So last week we talked about a few different options, including putting this like rising sun or earth on top of the icon, and we asked Jenna to sharpen it. And we actually had a lot of positive feelings about it. But in the end, our decision is to go with just the bird and hand, not anything on top of it, And then inside the phone image, let's bring that up today. Sorry, I thought I was, oh yeah, no, yeah, I'll get there. That one, no. Zoom. Okay. And then for the phone, we would have two different, for the square image in small detail, we might have.
Can you zoom?
Well, this, I'm sorry, I got to get the zoom faces off of my page so I can see things better. Okay. How's that?
Yes.
So then in the icons that we'd be using on the phones, when we have very small scale, it'll just either be just the bird and hand, or in some cases, our feeling is that we'll include the fabe letters as well, partly because it balances off the score nicely, but partly because the thinking is that as we initially get going, associating the name with that image will be helpful in terms of the branding, and probably later on, it would just work fine standalone. So I think that captures everything. So the idea is that we have a logo, we have our logo, we have our taglines, we have our colors, and we have our icon. Yay, Jenna, thank you so much.
Yay,
So hopefully everybody feels good about that, and I think Francis was especially good about that because he's been waiting on this stuff to get moving on the animation side of things. All right.
It looks good, Jenna. Really good work.
And again, I'm just so pleased. I mean, the logo work is nice. I think this is really going to distinguish us especially nicely. It's such a good concept. Okay. Then continuing on, any of the thoughts or questions about that? Sounds like we're good. Okay, and then the next one was to go over the funding pitch. So Francis and I have been working really hard on taking the fabe story and boiling it down into a script that can then be used as a voiceover to then layer in the animation and have our first probably couple of videos relatively quickly. One that's the crowdfunding pitch. So part of the March release is going to be not only the new version of the site, but a crowdfunding campaign to start raising funds. And then there'll be a variation of it that we're not going to touch on today. It'll be very similar. That's more just a general, here's Fabe, get involved sort of video. And what we thought might be helpful today is to have me read it to you. This feels a little bit strange, but anyway, have you essentially, if you want to, close your eyes, just sit back and listen to the words and see what you think of how compelling it is, how persuasive it is, and also, really importantly, if you can identify areas where you feel like we could shave off a few words or sentences, because Francis still wants to get it down shorter, and it's killing me. But I'm sure it's true. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's see, there it is.
I think it's worth mentioning that this is a funding pitch, not a promotion video. So we're trying to get funding out of this message.
Okay. But like I say, there's not much in here that's specifically for funders except for the ending part. Hopefully you'll see in here. So feel free to read along if you want, or just like I say, sit back and relax and enjoy the show. And maybe somebody could also put why don't you time it, Vincent? Can you do that with your phone? Start a timer, stopwatch?
I'll do it.
1 second, I'll do that.
3, 2.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Okay. There's something badly wrong with our world, and you know it. That's why you're here. Climate change is wreaking havoc and destroying lives across the planet. We see it and feel it happening, and yet our leaders in government and corporations refuse to treat climate change as the urgent crisis that it is. Is the situation hopeless? No, it's not. Is there can do before it's too late? Yes. Each of us can start taking action today, right now, that will make a difference for years to come. That's because one of the biggest drivers of climate change is our own consumption, all that stuff we buy. Every purchase we make makes climate change a little worse. Every purchase we don't make slows down climate change by just a little bit. When millions of us make the same buying decisions, that little bit turns into a big bit, big enough, we here at Fabe believe, to transform our buying power into a superpower to reverse climate change. This is not wishful thinking. This is how markets work. If we buy less stuff now, companies won't make so much stuff next year. If that happens several years in a row, fewer new factories will be built and some old factories will be closed, all leading to less pollution, less habitat destruction, less waste, less climate change. We can make this happen sooner than you might think possible because each of us have control over if, when, and how we consume. Each of us can say no thanks to the latest eye-popping television technology. Each of us can say no way to plastic water bottles. With enough no thanks and no ways to products we don't need or are wastefully packaged, companies will change what they sell. And with each change, we accumulate more power to press for more change. Okay, so much for the theory. How about the practice? How do we get millions of people to change how and what they buy? We asked ourselves the same question, and we believe the answer can be expressed with just 2 words: your phone. The internet, social media, and our phones have so far been used to increase consumption by making it easier and cheaper to buy online. With your help, fabe will harness those same technologies to convert our phones from climate change accelerants to climate change brakes. Imagine an app that makes taking action as easy as Amazon makes it to buy stuff. Imagine an app that's as addictive as Facebook, rewarding us as we reduce consumption, inspiring us to do more, sharing our successes with others. Imagine an app that elevates our individual buying choices to planet-scale demands for policy change. Or stop imagining and help us build that app right now. We've assembled a team of dedicated volunteers with expertise in software development, UX, UI design, data access, and more, and are building out both the website and the mobile app. We've taken the first big step with fabe, creating a database of over 300 climate change actions that you can use right now at fabe.earth to add your little bit to our big change momentum. We are so proud of what our volunteers have been able to accomplish in just a few months, but feel the urgency to move so much faster. We need to convert volunteers to dedicated full-time staff. We need to build out our cloud infrastructure to support large numbers of users. We have a marketing plan and need the budget to get the word out about fabe as quickly as possible. With your support, we can put fabe on the screens of millions around the world. Together, we can elevate the superpower of climate-aware consumption to a world-changing movement and reverse climate change now, before it is too late. Help us build fabe. Choose life, not stuff. And that's it.
That's 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
Not bad.
Powerful stuff. I love it.
So this is Helen, and I love it. This is the first time I'm hearing it, Stephen, like spoken. And the first thing I was thinking, since we have our friend in India now, when you talk about closing factories, is that going to drive fear into people like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in countries where there's a lot of industry like China and India. So what do you think about that?
Let me just start taking some notes.
This is a good point, though.
It's great for us in North America, but since we're thinking worldwide, it's mentioned it today. I just wonder if.
Why do you think it's not an issue for America?
No, I said it is. It's a good message for North America, but
No,
I'm just wondering.
No, I'm sorry. What I was asking is, why do you think it wouldn't? Why do you think people in the United States wouldn't have the same reaction and concern?
Oh, well, that's true. They could. Yeah, people that work in
would.
That.
I feel like politicians
people
talk
that
about
work.
that a lot.
Right.
So I'm not going to respond to that yet. But let's keep on going. Anybody with any thoughts, positive, negative, things to change, things to cut out, anything you've got?
I have a question. What is the channel through which we're planning to share this message?
So the idea is that we'll create a campaign on one of the crowdfunding platforms, GoFundMe, or there might be some more social responsible oriented ones that might fit better. So it'll certainly be there as a link inside our presentation. It'll be up on YouTube, put it out on all the different, part of what we need to actually do is build a launch plan that involves both the site and these assets. So we don't have it yet, but the idea is everywhere.
Got it. Yeah, that implicitly answers my question about who the target audience is.
I think eventually we're also going to target specific organizations to pass in our message more in depth or personally.
Mm-hmm.
At the
Jenna?
moment, the main target audience would probably be like-minded people who want to, in a sense, invest in something that would make a difference, which is why it's more pitched towards people who want to fund a campaign or Kickstarter type things. It's not so much about come and use the app, but more we need the money to make it even better.
Mm.
And that's why the focus is slightly different from the where this original message came from, which is Stephen's 4-minute fabe story. So we've taken that and kind of rejigged it around to get to this point.
Jenna?
Yeah, I was just going to say I like the closing a lot. I thought it was really strong, and I like the way that it kind of funnels into that like last statement.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Nice.
So I don't know how we model the patience of our viewer. Does 3 minutes and 30 seconds seem long? Do we want to trim it down further, or is that the length that we were shooting for?
Can I ask a question back to you first, Hayden, and the rest of you? Did you feel like it was dragging? Like, did you ever feel this, like, keep going, I'm done with that, and you keep on going? Anything like that?
So I'll put it this way. It felt engaging throughout. There was one section that was highlighted that felt like, I guess I'd put it the money shot, like it's the description of what our app does. And if we were inclined to edit that down, I think there were opportunities to cut the material ahead of that money shot to move it closer to the beginning of the video. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
There's one section that describes what the app does.
Imagine an app that.
Precisely, yeah. So that's essentially the worst case scenario is people dropping off the video before they reach that section. And if we are afraid of that, and I'm not saying that we should be, but if we do model people using focus before that moment, I think we could maybe move some of the sections that come before it afterwards, or maybe cut them entirely.
Okay.
I agree. I think we've always said that our message is going to be positive, and make them as positive and have people do positive action. The couple lines also that gave me pause were the politicians and corporations weren't doing anything. Some are. So that kind of made me go, maybe we just want to even zap that about who are not doing anything. And take that line out about corporations and politicians who aren't doing anything.
I think I caught most of that. Neviana had raised a similar concern about that sentence. Okay.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Tobias.
There was one part in this text which made me feel, it was about closing down the factories. And I think when you go to somewhere which was working in a factory or go funding for it, and they are working in a factory, it feels like you do something good, but you maybe lose your job because of that. Mm-hmm. So maybe closing down the factories is not so good to put in this text. It feels like, it feels strange. For me, it felt strange. Maybe it is the natural, what will happen. Of course, you will have to close down factories and will not rebuild or will not build new ones. But for me, it felt a bit, not like it's not how we work nowadays with our capitalism, and maybe it goes too far. Mm-hmm. Okay, but maybe it's just me.
No, it's not just you, for sure. Obviously, yeah.
I am absolutely not disagreeing. This is not a contradiction of that thought, but more just a compliment. Everything is a trade-off, and essentially, if we want every sentiment that we put out there that makes some people feel excluded has the potential to make other people feel more included. So a sentiment that excludes no one will probably not resonate with anyone. So I think we need to have some edge, and whatever that edge is will probably make some people feel excluded.
I do think now that it's mentioned twice now, Tobias and I think Helen was the one who mentioned it before as well about the factories. I mean, most of the political rhetoric at the moment with regards to why we're not doing anything for climate change is always losing jobs, losing, you know, they always talk about we want to balance climate change with jobs in factories. We want to make sure that, you know, the polluting factories can still, you know, find ways of becoming less polluting and things like that. So politically speaking, it does, I think it does push certain buttons, and maybe we can rephrase it so that I mean, we obviously do want to say that the less you buy, the less has to be made. We may not need to mention that, oh, if less needs to be made, factories need to close. We just need to say that less needs to be made. The implication, you let the viewer decide what that means,
right,
if less need to be made.
I agree. I'm going in that same direction. You know, part of me pushes back against these kinds of concerns because it's absolutely true that if fabe is successful in a big way, there will be a massive worldwide depression. That's what will happen as industry shifts, as people no longer buy the massive amounts of crap that we never should have been producing, right? There have to be major shifts coming. This would hopefully be a way to make it happen in a positive way, in the sense that there'll be shifts to making more sustainable products. People will have more money to spend on better, but you can't encapsulate that in the short message. And that's clearly a hot button issue, right? To say close down factories, immediately anybody who has a friend or a relative who works in a factory, they will immediately start thinking about those people. And there's no reason to do that if we don't have to. So this is great feedback, and we will definitely be able to modify that language.
Just to clarify my thought, the fact that the script pushes buttons is an observation, not a criticism. We may choose to push buttons.
And Hayden, your point was really great. If nobody is pissed at what we have to say, then we did something wrong, in a sense.
Right.
But is it appropriate for a fundraising?
Well, and which buttons do we want to push, right? For the funding appeal, or for any appeal, which button we should be really clear about which buttons we're willing to push. So, for example, I'm all for taking out the comment about factories. I can see that there's no reason to be that specific, and we can get the same message across. I would be less inclined to remove the statement about government and corporations are not doing what's necessary. Essentially, our leaders have failed us. It's true that some leaders not every person totally has their head stuck in the sand in this, but in general, our leaders are completely failing us at this time, especially at this time when it's very clear what's going on in the world now, and still there's almost no political momentum for change. I think it would be too. Go ahead.
Would it be better than to say that many leaders, or most leaders, and most corporations aren't doing anything, rather than saying all?
Okay, sure. And so, and yet many of our leaders in government and corporations. How's that?
Or we can say our leaders aren't doing enough. You know, instead of saying many aren't doing anything, we could just say they're not doing enough. That's true.
That's better. Yeah, I like that.
Just to circle back about one thing Aiden said regarding people that may not even get to the part that we described, fabe. Mm-hmm. I think it'll become clear when we get this funding pitch out there, who is going to come to us. Are we looking for individual donors that gives $25 for their credit tax? Or are we looking for investors that put in $100,000? It's not so clear who we are going to attract with the message.
Well, I think we'll try to get both, and I think we'll end up taking different pathways. And I think the crowdfunding platform is primarily oriented towards the smaller donation side rather than the larger. Somebody's going to donate 100,000. Chances are they're going to do it because one of us directly contacts them through some channel or other. And we started.
Absolutely. But the concern about people not getting into the middle of the video is about individual donors, not the big investors.
Right.
I did find the second half of the message much more uplifting and really, tugged at me. Kind of like what I think it was Tobias said. I don't remember who said it. I'm sorry.
And by the way, that's pretty much how pitches generally go. So I used to do a lot of fundraising for the various anti-intervention and anti-apartheid and anti stuff that I was doing for years. And the standard flow for a pitch is express urgency and then provide the solution, essentially. It's actually a 3-step. I can't remember what the intermediate step is. But if you don't get, you grab people about the urgency of the situation, and then you say, but we have a solution. But it doesn't mean that we've got the best way of phrasing the urgency yet either. And I get the concern that we don't want to make it just sound dismal, just make people feel too depressed. I also, as I go through it now, I'm thinking that maybe we could say less about the, if everybody does a little bit, it gets to be a bigger bit. I think that might work in the bigger story and for a general appeal to get involved. But I think we might be able to contract that a bit too. And just move fast. In other words, I'm thinking as I'm trying to sell that to a funder, to somebody who's already on board, it almost sounds a little bit simplistic. Like, do we really need to tell me this? If we buy less stuff, then less stuff is made. I think it's a very important argument to be made step by step, but maybe in this case, in a short video, we don't have to actually go to that step-by-step explanation and save some time. Okay.
Yeah, let's see. Some things need to be explained, even though they're simple. Our argument needs to be logical.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Should we move on?
Any other thoughts? So I like how you guys started out with, love it, it's really great, it's powerful, and then we came up with 25 things to change. That's perfect. All right. But I don't see anything big here, Francis, so I think that we'll be able to knock this out and start production. And there, I guess, at some point, Francis, we might need to get in touch with Jenna about some possible elements, graphic elements that you'll be using in the animation.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jenna, not to put you... Go ahead.
Let's note down what we need to say, and then we'll come up with some visual ideas and the whole storyboard for it. And then Jenna might need to come up with some graphic elements for it.
And Jenna, you've been spending a lot of time on this, and it's been fantastic. Don't hesitate to let us know that, for the next couple of weeks, maybe I can't do as much as I have been, or, get another person to help me or whatever. Okay, so yeah, let's move on. So we got our logo, our icon, we got our funding pitch almost finalized.
And we have AOP.
And you know what, there was one other thing I added, and I can't even remember what it was now.
That's AOP.
Oh, that's AOP, right. I'm thinking CBP or whatever, and ECP. Right, so I don't know how, those of you in the world of Apex are probably familiar with a product called Apex Office Print, which is a commercial product for Apex that makes it much easier to generate output for Apex. It's one of the big weak areas of application expresses the tool. So, and I haven't actually used it myself, but it's been getting rave reviews. Vincent, have you ever used it?
On the surface.
Okay. And so I reached out to Dimitri Gillis, who's a longtime friend and Apex deity. And so basically, they have donated a full-use Apex license to us for whatever number of credits we will ever need, and we can install it on-prem if we need it that way instead. So this is the reason I decided to reach out to him, is that I'm still discussing with Vincent the idea of, in the V4 release in March, giving people something they can take away. And one idea had been to generate a PDF, generate some sort of output format. AOP will make that, I believe, a lot easier if we do decide to get it in the next release. So at least we got a little bit more tools on our side and another donation. All right. Okay, so now we'll move on to the other apps. Should we do that?
Yes. So last time we discussed Julebug, which was an application similar to Mars. Did anyone continue using it, or I did not?
A little bit. I guess I never got confident that I was using the tool the way they intended it, which was a little frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably put in an hour or so.
I find myself going back to it now and then. I get the notifications. So I'll get a notification now and then. And I'll occasionally go back to it and play around with the UI some more and have the same feeling. It just doesn't grab me and hold me and doesn't feel great. So anything else on Julebug?
I think my chief criticism is that on any given page, it's actually not obvious what the call to action is.
Okay.
So it's not clear what you're expected to do at many stages of the app.
Mm-hmm.
So your criticism of Julebug was mostly around the UI, UX, navigation?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And I think we just continue to use it as a comparison point for our app as to what we're doing differently that will hopefully be more engaging. And, okay.
And Stephen, you found another one.
Right.
Week.
So actually, it's funny. This started off on Twitter. There was somebody must have retweeted a message from a guy named Peter Kalmus, which had this paragraph describing what his 10-year-old son said about climate change. And I thought, oh, that was pretty cool. And I went and started looking at Peter. And Peter is a climate scientist who published a book back last year called Being the Change. And come on. So Being the Change, Live Well and Spark a Climate Revolution. I did get in touch with them and say, could you please put something here about ordering it from the library as well? Since you don't want to reduce your carbon footprint. Anyway, so Peter went through this whole life transformation to deal with his angst about climate change and to see what he could do, and ended up completely transforming his life, wrote a book about it. He's got, I think, something like 10, 11,000 Twitter followers. Peter.
So that's where their following came from, because their app has a lot of followers on Twitter as well.
Right. So I found Peter, and from Peter I found something called End Carbon Pollution. End Carbon Pollution. If we go back to Twitter. I was thinking that was their Twitter handle. Yeah. NCO2 pollution. Okay. It's coming. So it's so they've got this website. They've got 6,500 followers. Smartphone app. Wow. Okay, smartphone app. Anyway, I then went to their site, started taking a look around, reached out to Peter. Actually, didn't reach out to Peter. Reached out to ECP to say, hey, it looks like you're doing something similar. It's a nonprofit initiative compared to Julebug. So we decided I would reach out to them and explore what they're doing and what synergies we had. And a guy named Ben, who oddly enough lives in Chicago, responded right away. And we set up a meeting, and then he pulled in Peter. I didn't even realize Peter was part of this project. So I ended up having a phone call with the two of them. Was it just yesterday? It must have been the day before now. And it was really, really interesting. So we're both pursuing something similar. They're thinking to release the first iteration of their app as an iPhone app next month as kind of an alpha test, similar time frame as ours. It's really unclear as to what the app will look like, what it will do. There, as you can see on the website, their focus is end carbon pollution, like stop CO2 emissions. And that's Peter's whole book is all fundamentally about, as a climate scientist, reducing the carbon footprint. They seem to have a really strong emphasis on calculating what your footprint is and reducing it. And see what actions make the most impact. Where do they talk about that? Top actions ranked. We hear so many different ways that we can help to solve the climate change. Which ones have the biggest impact? So they're going to do this prioritizing process to help people, guide people in terms of what the most important things they are that they can do. Which I think is probably not a great idea, as it turns out. I can come back to that. And let's see what else to say about them. I didn't get a sense of I wasn't probing too much because I don't think Ben wanted to talk a whole lot about the details of what they're doing. Ben is the lead developer. They have a core team. I don't know how many more people are on the team. I think he's pretty much the main developer. He's not a professional software developer. He's writing his app in React for an iPhone. Then they're hoping to use React Native and go to iPhone and Android. I felt a little bit bad for them listening to what they're doing and looking at their website. Basically, I think from a technical standpoint, we're way ahead of them, which is not surprising since we came from the technical community. I think Ben got excited about Peter's book, reached out to him and said, let's do something. So let's see, to sum up, and then we can go back and take questions and talk about it more. We agreed that there's a tremendous amount of synergies. In fact, my distinct impression after I did my various fabe rants to Peter and Ben on our call, Ben was like getting really excited, like really pumped up. And I do encourage you to get the book and check it out. It's all about a spiritual journey, about transforming your life, about values. It's all about fabe. There's so much overlap with fabe. I so wish I had known this guy about him when I launched the project last September. We probably have him on board our organization. So towards the end, he was saying to Ben, as we're talking about complementary synergies, you know, Ben, maybe our apps can end up being good for essentially leaders, to educate them about how they can educate people about reducing carbon footprint. And maybe fabe would be more for the masses, which Ben was visibly displeased about. But we agreed in the short run that we both have alphas or betas coming out soon. Let's continue along those paths. Let's see how things work out. As I put it, we're essentially can do some live A/B testing. Which do people like their approach more than our approach? Because I told them, I don't think just focusing on CO2 emissions and reducing your carbon footprint is going to be terribly appealing to people. Sorry. And we talked about Julebug. They know about Julebug. They know about Aura Eco, all of that stuff. They've been doing their homework probably better than us. But what we also, so we're going to basically keep going. Obviously, no change on our side. And then we'll sort of get a feel for, we'll learn from each other. And we'll see if there may be ways to synergize. One of the things that Ben mentioned, which I thought was fascinating, is do we really want to have multiple databases of actions? And the answer, of course, is no, we don't want to have multiple databases of hundreds of actions and all the other aspects of attributes about them. So one thing that we may end up doing is having a single action database, and I think it would be ours, that we would strengthen with their side of things, which is more of the carbon footprint calculator analysis, which I would much rather have somebody else do that than have us do it. So merge that kind of data set together, and we make our data set available publicly through an API, which we'd probably want to do anyway. Why would we keep it to ourselves? So that's something we'll be looking at as we go down the road.
Just by the way, that's something Adrian and I would have in the plans of working on, to expose our public data. We should not expose user data, but
right,
everything that is public, the actions, statistics.
Oh, and I think, for example, making the action database publicly available as a resource to anybody wanting to do this sort of thing, that'll be great just in terms of the promotion of fabe, you know, how open we are to just helping everybody.
It will definitely happen.
Great. So it's fascinating. It's concerning to me that we have these multiple similar initiatives, and there are probably others, but you know, we have a big world, lots and lots of humans. I am pretty optimistic that we can get Peter to essentially join our initiative. That's my feeling at this point. We'll see how things go. And I just want to say, feel free to move around their website and check it out, but our website is so much nicer. Even like click on ACT, and here it comes. Top actions coming soon. It's like there's literally nothing here, and they make it sound where you go to the home page and, you know, download on the App Store, but no, you can't download on the App Store. It's not there yet. It just takes you back to the page. So, you know, I feel like, unfortunately for Peter, and I really feel like he was beginning to feel this way, you know, I've had this happen to me where I have an idea, somebody comes and says, Stephen, let's work together, and I say, sure. And it turns out they were totally not the right people to work together on, because they had their strengths and a lot of weaknesses. I think that Ben must have approached Peter and said, hey, I want to, you know, let's build an app. And he's like, really? You build an app? Let's go. And my God, he's not even a professional software guy. He's just hacking it together. So
for the record, I don't think React is a bad technology to make an app, but if it all depends on his expertise.
Actually, Peter was asking me early on in the call, and Stephen, what do you think of React? He was like really urgently wanting to know. I wonder if they're having a lot of trouble pulling it all together and continuing delays. And like, yeah, no, I'm sure it's fine. And you know, Apex has its strengths and weaknesses too. They all do. So I did sign up. You might go ahead and sign up as well. There's, you know, they've got these pictures. There's no other information. There's nothing to do with it except click on photos, which is weird too. And then just one other thought. So they have this idea about prioritizing impact. So for example, and I think Peter mentioned this on the call, or Ben, everybody is up in arms about plastic straws and how you should stop using plastic straws, but you fly in a jet plane and using way more carbon emissions than a plastic straw. So we need to focus on what's really going to have the most impact, is their argument. And I actually think that that approach is totally doomed, because of course, you can't just urge people to not fly in airplanes. He has, by the way, a whole separate website just on no-fly climate change or something like that. But I feel like the approach we're taking, which is agnostic, here are all these things you can do, will help you assemble a plan to help you start to change how you live your life, is a way better plan than, hey, you could do a plastic straw, but what you really want to do is not fly in an airplane.
In the context of getting the most people as possible on board, right. I agree.
And I think you also step them up to something like that. Most people are not going to suddenly say, I won't fly in an airplane, but as they realize the impact of their actions and what it can do. So, comments or questions?
I think it's amazing how many followers they have, and they have nothing to show.
Yeah.
Yeah. How this works.
I think that Vincent is probably right that Peter, with his 10, 12,000 followers, his book has gotten a lot of attention. He says he gets like 3 media calls a day. I think that's probably been one of the big drivers, but I don't really know. And they haven't been around all that long. Yeah.
It's a bit sad. You're right. It could have been a really good combination. Our technical point of view and their media interest, including the followers, would have been a perfect match.
Well, and it's not too late to match up. I think there'll be a number of things like this happening. I think that once we get the app out, even the fabe Lite version in March, I think that we're going to have so much to show in terms of the direction we're heading and the kind of ideas we've got. My impression from talking to Peter and Ben is that they haven't been thinking at all about how do you craft messages, how do you create a story. Peter mentioned, yes, I can see that you guys are really big on stories, on telling a story. Well, that's what humans love. Humans, I think the idea that end CO2 pollution, end carbon pollution, let's get on board with reducing our carbon footprint, that doesn't work. I mean, I think it's proven to not work. That's been the talk for years, and it's too abstract, it's too distant. So I think that once we start to put out, getting closer to that story, telling the story and showing what they can do, I think we'll have people like Peter and others coming to us and, you know, wanting to join us and giving us their money in great numbers. So, any other thoughts? Do check out Peter, really interesting guy. I'm looking forward to working with him more and reading his book and seeing what other actions we can take from his book. All right.
10 minutes early, that's good.
Cool. So any questions, comments from all of you about what's going on, what you think we should be focusing on, things we're missing, concerns?
One thing I'd like to say that's more for Vinit is that these, I didn't really talk to you about the format of our meetings. On the Friday morning, I don't know what time it is for you, but this meeting is a general meeting. Everybody can attend, and we talk the project direction. And we have another slot for development meeting, which I think I sent you the invitation. So don't worry, eventually we're going to talk specifics. That's not the purpose of today's meeting.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Again, thank you, Jenna, for helping us get to this point where we're ready to launch our visuals. Thank you, Francis, for being so patient with me and my pushback on make it shorter. No. You know, I think we're continue to make some nice, steady progress. Much
Yes,
appreciated.
yeah.
All right.
Steve,
Have a great weekend.
Steven, could I talk?
But
Wait,
Helen.
Steve, could I talk to you and Neviana for a minute about case fill?
Sure. Neviana is not on this call, I think, but
Oh,
I can
she's
stay
not.
on.
I thought I heard her. Okay,
Do you want me to stay on with you?
yeah, please, if you don't mind.
okay,
Nobody else has to.
Jenna, can you stay as well? There's just one thing I'd like to mention.
Oh,